Last of Us Season 2, Episode 3 was actually a very good episode of TV. Now, comparing it to the game and where the game had this certain moment, it's obviously very different because there are certain scenes that didn't happen in the game. Spoilers for the actual episode. The Ellie hospital scene did not happen. We didn't have the more Seth in the actual game. There was no council of Jackson or whatever it's called in the game, and we didn't see that new group this early on in the actual game. But with that being said, I think the changes are actually pretty nice so far, at least with this episode. One thing I will say for sure, the acting, the portrayal of the characters' emotions from the game is translated very well to the show. Now, obviously, visually, the biggest discrepancies are Ellie and Abby. But both of their actresses are doing extremely well at conveying the tone that the characters have from the game. So, as long as the actual feelings of the characters stay consistent, I'm not going to complain about how they look, which is a yes or no, because there's things that happen in the game that if they do them the same way in the show, won't make sense just from a physicality standpoint, but that's going to be much later on. But anyway, this episode starts off with giving us a better look at how Jackson operates, which I actually really like in comparison to the game. We kind of just stray away from Jackson really quickly. And here we sit in it with a little bit more, sit in the grief a little bit more in terms of the surrounding cast, not just Ellie, Dina, and Tommy. The character writing is on point, and it makes sense within the story and the current place of the story itself. In the overarching story, it makes sense based on the game structure, and within the structure of the show, it makes sense. Then we get Dina telling Ellie about all the stuff, all the information about Abby and her group, Western Liberation Front, and we see how giving that info to Tommy affects Tommy visually, and then also in the council when we see all the townspeople's reactions to wanting to go out and find them. Then of course Ellie and Dina go out on their own with the help of Seth, surprisingly, and start making their way to Seattle, and they pretty much make it at the end of this episode. I feel like there was some other stuff that I think in the game it was puzzles and stuff, which would have been cool to see, but I feel like coming up in this next episode is where stuff is really gonna pop off. At least I hope we get a little bit of a pop off from Ellie and Dina. One thing I am curious about though is if they're gonna do what happens when they do get to Seattle, because there is one thing that happens that I don't know if they're gonna do. What I would like to see is some more hints and not hints, more homages to the game. I would love if Ellie hides behind a car and because we saw the little tin cans when she was packing up her stuff. I would love if she hides behind a car and throws over the little tin can into a group of people. I would love if she dives into tall grass or something. But I just don't see Bella Ramsey being able to I don't see her have fighting a group of people and doing stuff that you'll be able to do in the game, which obviously it's a game, it's gonna be much different. But think about how cool it would be to have her running at someone, hit him with a baseball bat, throw a Molotov, and then jump off a car and shotgun someone in the face. Obviously that's not gonna happen, but I feel like it would be cool if they could do that. But that's just me liking the game. So you have to separate the game from this a little bit because it's obviously much different. They're also stretching it out, over 2 seasons. So I just hope that it starts getting violent soon, because if that's another thing too, because they touched on it briefly in this episode, revenge versus justice and all of that. In the game, Ellie goes on a rampage in Seattle. They need to be able to capture that, because regardless of how what the structure, they are still going to keep how it ends, I feel. So to get us to that payoff and be able to do it better within the structure of the show, we need to see Ellie go crazy. They need to capture that in the next 2 episodes, because we're already in Seattle. And I don't know, that's that's spoilers for that, so I'm not gonna get into that, but I hope they capture that. But regardless, this was still a pretty good episode of TV. I was locked in start to finish. We had some really nice shots as they were traveling into Seattle with her and Dina. Um, and one thing I love about the show and the structure of the show versus the game is the perspective, because we got a little bit of that in the game, not a little bit, a lot of that in the game, but in my opinion, it wasn't done right. Here, it seems that they're taking a different turn and giving a bit more perspective to every single group that is present in the second game, which is something that was lacking from the actual game itself. So I do like that, and I do think that it's gonna make certain moments better. But we'll see how it goes.